And welcome to the War Eagle Productions Alumni Spotlight. I'm Parker Lapine, senior producer here at War Eagle Productions. And we've got here today with us Kevin Roberts, a 2014 grad of Auburn and a former WEP employee. Kevin, welcome.
Hey, great to be here, guys. Good to see you.
Joined by Jake Mays and Daniel DePoe as well. Uh, we'll get started, Kevin. When you look back at your time here at WEP, what was maybe one of your fondest memories or a moment that really stands out for you?
Oh man, I have so many great memories at War Eagle Productions. But I think if I had to choose, one of my favorite moments had to have been about a 2 week stretch. It was the 2017 football season where we played Georgia and Alabama within about a 2 week stretch, and both of those live shows were just so much fun to be a part of because we really felt like had we actually created a difference in the game through the content we produced, as well as some of the live elements that we had throughout the game. You know, whether it was doing instant replays to get calls overturned, and it didn't hurt that both Georgia and Alabama were both number one, and to get to beat them both in a 2 week span was pretty awesome as an Auburn fan.
Yeah, you look back at what you can do to impact a game.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of people think, oh, hey, TV, you got that side, but that in venue experience, be able to impact that's something that's huge
Oh yeah.
as you go forward. And the adrenaline rush you get from that, there's not much like it, is there?
Oh no, nothing like it, man. It is incredible. And yeah, like you said, I mean, it all starts with preparation though, too. I mean, so much of, what you do throughout the week, leading up to the game, if you're doing something in venue, it's just making sure that you're prepared with the content pieces you've created, making sure you're mentally prepared too. I mean, yeah, like the games can be huge and it can be kind of intense. You have to like take a step back and just, remember, hey, this is just like a normal game, that we've practiced or rehearsed hundreds of times. And so getting all that, it's fantastic.
You mentioned the prep
Mhm.
because people always see the big glitzy board at the stadium and they're like, oh, that's really cool. But there's a lot that goes into those shows, not only day of, but the weeks leading up to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. It's crazy how much stuff goes into it, And me being someone who got to be a part of that and see it firsthand, you realize how important it is to go through every single element, to think through every situation, because especially because I did a lot of what I did live was replay operator, and when you think about it, I mean, really and truly, like through a 3 or 4 hour period, you're only showing like a few minutes of replay, so there's so much prep you have to go through and mental like training so that way you don't miss those big moments, because I mean, those moments, they're coming and going with or without you. So you have to be prepared.
You were talking about on the live side, you did a lot of replay. If you had advice for someone who maybe wanted to do replay or is currently doing replay, what would be the one big thing that you would say every game to constantly work on?
I would say, one of the biggest things is going to sound like super obvious for replay, but pay attention, but not just during the game, but before the game. Like pay attention to what the directors and producers are talking about before the game, even when they're not directly talking to you, because so much of that I would pick up on helped me through my career at WEP and even coming back and doing live sports, is because you'll start to kind of pick up on the tendencies or the cadence, especially if it's a new producer or director you're working with, but figuring out kind of like how they're going to want things, ask a lot of questions pregame, especially if you're doing, linear where you have a lot of time before the game. Don't just sit there, just really pay attention. I can't stress that enough. And obviously during the game, like always be paying attention. It's such an easy thing to say, but it's so important to like just not zone out. Always be listening to announcers. Always be watching to where the game action's going, the game situations, because all of that changes, per sport, per venue, and it's or even per broadcast. If you're doing video board versus SEC Network or ESPN.
And you mentioned you came back. So Kevin left in 2018 and he went to Terrapin.
Yeah.
And you may wonder, well, how do you go from sport to Terrapin? Kind of talk about one or some of the things you were able to take that you applied here and now can use it at Terrapin.
Yeah. So a lot of, I did a lot at Auburn. That's what was it's like an awesome thing looking back on it, was I got to do a lot of live sports, a lot of post-production, a lot of stuff with social media, I did a lot in my last year at Auburn. I became so fascinated with it. So coming to Terrapin, I wanted to take that kind of, that drive and that standard that we have at Auburn and take it to a totally different industry. And that's a lot of what I use at Terrapin now is just, the stuff I learned through social, trying to figure out, like, okay, what does your audience want to see? What kind of content works for different platforms? And then taking that and just expanding upon it as much as you can and taking it to the next level. Cause that is like one of the biggest things I learned at Auburn was like how to, take something for what it is, but then take that to the next level in every facet, from live to post to everything you do, even from like the technical standpoints, figuring out the easiest, the best ways to go about doing things. I felt like we always did such a good job and still do a good job at Auburn.
No, you also said you came back, and I think in 2020, actually 2019, you started coming back. So,
yeah,
one, what made you want to come back, and then two, like, do you still have that love of sport that you just can't really get rid of?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I missed that live element so much, and it can be a grind in the day to day sometimes, and you can kind of lose sight of like how awesome and important it is. And I think, I got the live bug bit me and I just can't, I had to come back, man. I was like, I miss it. Now, yeah, I'll drive back 3.5 hours every weekend to come back and do some SEC Network, ESPN shows, man.
Jake, he's got a fever. The only fix is more sports. It's the only way you can fix it. Yeah. So he came back.
There's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it. I mean, y'all know it's so much fun to cover that, in the live moment. With posts, you get to sit and really sometimes to the detriment of the project, just like fixate over small things over and over and over. And the beauty of live is just like, it's this thing's moving and you gotta keep up. Because if you don't, I mean, you're in trouble.
Well, real quick, man, going back to UGA 2017, a fun moment to me was the Crank That moment, right?
Yeah.
Give a little backstory for those who might not know what happened before 2017 with Georgia and then what kind of brought that into that game.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, in 2007, Auburn went to Georgia. It was the first time ever they did a blackout game, and early fourth quarter, they started to kind of pull away and they went to break on CBS. And when they came back, they showed the entire stadium and the players doing Crank That, Soldier Boy. Everybody was having fun. I think even like Vern and Gary were doing it. And like, as an Auburn fan, it just like irked me. And that image stuck with me forever. And I was like, man, I wish we could do something like that to Georgia. And it took 10 years. But the game leading up to that week, I was talking to our director at the time, Michael Sullivan. I was like, man, I want to have a Crank That moment this week. I want to, whether it's a crowd prompt or something, like because Georgia's number one too. So I was like, if we're in a spot, we're in a lead, and it just happened to work out to where we weren't just in the lead in that game. We were like blowing them out, similarly to how it was that 2007 game. And at one point in the game, Michael just looks back at me and he goes, "We're going to do Crank That." And I was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Dan, hit it." And they did it. And it was one of the most beautiful moments. Probably, like, honestly, that might be my favorite moment. Just getting to see that come full circle as a fan to like actually getting to kind of have some kind of input on what we did on game day.
And,
for sure,
I can relate to that because I actually remember because we had the radio feed going through the room, and I actually remember them commentating or talking about, hey, if you remember 10 years ago, there was a certain song playing, and then it kept building up and building up. So it was just funny to see how that moment had just irked you for so long. You wasn't the only one. So it was just a nice like payoff because once the song came on, the whole crowd really knew what was going on. So that was just a very fun moment.
Oh yeah, and we did. That's right. We had the announcer cams too, and so I think we re-rolled it back eventually and saw that everybody in the booth like recognized it, and it's such a great clip to see. I like Rod Bramblett and Stan White and all those guys up there just like oh my god, like Is that what we're doing? This is awesome.
Soldier Boy rings out through all of Jordan-Hare Stadium right now.
Wonder why that is.
I have no idea. It's an old classic, I know that.
Yeah.
40-10. It's not on my iPod.
You want to tell everybody the story behind it?
It's not on my iPod, but I do remember this song. I think I heard it one of the first times over in Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago, in fact.
Yeah. I think that's one of the cool things about sports, though, guys, is there's moments like that you never forget. For me, I was a Mizzou grad, and I'll never forget 2010 Oklahoma. Game days there all day. It's a 7 p.m. kickoff on ABC. I mean, the place is juiced, and the opening kickoff gets returned, and that place goes bonkers. Like, you talk about I know it's a rival, but the earthquake game at LSU, I felt like that was Missouri's, earthquake game. And, it's those moments that just stand out in the memory. And there's been so many that this group has been a part of. And it's great hearing some of those stories. I know talking to Daniel and Jake all the time and, talking to alumni through this project, like, it's those moments that stand out, and it's what makes sports and this job one of the coolest ones you can have.
Oh, absolutely. Because, it lives with you forever. I mean, there's so many, like you're saying, there's so many moments I can even go back to, like, when I was an intern that, like, I will never forget. Just being there, being a part of the experience, It's really unlike anything you'll ever get to do in your life.
I don't want to. You brought up the 2017 game against Alabama, so it just jogged a lot of memories. From a behind-the-scenes standpoint, I'll never forget, it was the third quarter of that game, and Alabama's driving. Hurts throws a ball, and it looks like Alabama catches it. And I'll never forget you just going, "Red," because the ball hit the ground. And I'll never, for whatever reason, as long as I get to continue doing football, it will always be an example that I will always bring up, because it's like, you would assume they'll look at that and replay, but showing it on that board, seeing the crowd reaction, it almost made them have to look at it. So that's just something I always will remember about that game.
I'm glad you brought that up because, I get to tell people, I got to take a touchdown away from Alabama, which is not a lot of things I get to say. But we had that game, we had such a veteran replay crew. And I can remember, like immediately – I had saw that it had touched the ground, so I had it ready. But then Austin Lacey, who was also on replay, had the Supermo. He had his angle, so we went from my look to his look to Blake Leach, who was also on replay, and we were just going back and forth, rocking it. We all knew the situation and like where the endpoint needed to be. We all had it quickly, and we knew then it was no longer just like a regular replay sequence, where you might be getting to that rhythm where it's just like, you roll it back from the snap and show it. Like we all knew this situation, what we were doing. This wasn't a normal replay sequence. To kind of go back to the prep, where you do so many games and so many reps and you're constantly involved in it. And then when a moment like that happens, it all pays off and it all comes together to where we were all on the same page. We were ready to go. And we got to take a touchdown away from Alabama. That felt really good.
That's crazy to think about for sure.
Yeah.
Man, so one of my favorite memories is one of the machines we had back in the day, and it was an ORAD, right?
I don't remember that.
Favorite machines. Man, talk a little bit about the machinery you've seen in your time being at Auburn and kind of, how we've evolved over time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I first got there, actually, like War Eagle Productions was out of Jordan-Hare Stadium. And man, some of the equipment there was crazy. So Blake Leach taught me on the 3-play originally, which was what I learned on for like replay. And I think they had another replay system. I forget the name of it, but that place, the technology was so crazy in there. Like Blake would show me how to do certain things. He'd be like, okay, so this is supposed to work like this, but it actually works like this. And so like I would have to like try to remember like. And I would always remember like, oh yeah, he said it works like this. Like you press this button. He goes, oh no, wait, it's not that. Like it's where the duct tape is that you have to like press or something. It was like always really jank. And then while I was there, they were building the new studio where War Eagle Production is now with some of the other equipment too, like the ORADs, which we had, which was definitely not as good as the Dreamcatcher. But the equipment has evolved so much over time. Yeah, going from Jordan-Hare to like our control room to like now when you see it, it's crazy. I mean, the Dreamcatchers are just like amazing. The amount of stuff you can do for, if you don't know, that's our replay system. I mean, it's amazing to remember like stuff that we had on the 3-play or even like the ORADs, and like how difficult you couldn't even like share clips. Like that's something I take for granted now a lot when I come and run Dreamcatcher. I'm like, oh yeah, like we had a system that your angles were what you had, the clips were what you had, and like to send something, it was going to take like 5 minutes. So like now it's like it's all shared network. You have everybody's angles. It's incredible. It's amazing, and it makes life so easy for an operator.
Kevin, you mentioned not just the machinery, but the time you were at WEP was a time of growth and transition for the group. Now, what do you take from those early years of SEC Network and doing ESPN shows, and what kind of growth did you see for not only maybe yourself, but the program as a whole in that time that you were there?
Yeah, man. It's crazy to go back and remember like when SEC Network started and we were all kind of just like, what are we doing? And some of those early shows, I don't know that I've ever gone back and watched some of them, but the amount of growth, I think it is just from the reps. Cause Parker, like we did so many shows, so many games. So like just constantly, those softball tournaments, I know Jake and Daniel remember where we would do like 6 or 7 games in a weekend. It feels like maybe more. It was crazy. And so you get so many reps, and then you start to slowly grow over time, and you don't really notice it. It's like kind of gradual. You feel like you're just kind of going through and picking little things here and there where you're improving on. But I'll remember that first year, the moment that I realized we had gotten really good was softball regionals, when they brought in producers and directors to do linear for the whole weekend. And I remember sitting back at the end of that going like, holy cow, like we're like a real production now. Like, we're going back to like that, like, November, December when I had first started the year before. It was like, I didn't know what I was doing, man. The first event I ever did was shading. And like I jumped in and I didn't know what I was doing, what was going on. People were like, talking about CCUs and the iris up and down. I was like, I don't know what any of this means. Like I'm just here like moving these knobs, praying to God something works. Go from like that to where, you're just sometimes it felt like you're just struggling through every game to like getting to look back and be like, holy cow, all those games we did mattered. Like I feel like I've gotten so much better at this, and seeing the whole group like that too.
Yeah, it's probably one of the more fun parts to me, I think, is just seeing how far and how talented everybody gets in a little over a year, right? I mean, the improvement everybody makes is pretty crazy. Talk a little bit about just the camaraderie and kind of, I don't want to say friendships you've kind of gathered, but I mean, it's safe to say you spend almost all year with these same people, like you're on a baseball team with them. Just kind of talk a little bit about that if you can.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're staying up late with these guys. I mean, you're getting up real early, spending all day. I mean, yeah, you form, unbreakable bonds. I mean, I'm going to tell you, like, I don't come back for really any other reason to really just get to hang out with y'all when I come back and do freelance, and get to do a game. I mean, I could do Georgia games like right down the road, but I'm like, man, I want to hang out with Jake and Parker and Daniel, man. I want to like, go back. So you form this like brotherhood that like you're not going to get anywhere else. It is come with like a team, the teams we cover, like you're with these guys, through thick and thin, through the highs and the lows. And so you get to experience all that. And yeah, it's, it's unbreakable bond. Y'all are stuck with me, man. I'm going to be coming back.
Dang it. Jake, he said he likes us, so put the check in the mail, make sure that's ready for him next time he's over at your place. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, man, but we appreciate you taking the time chatting with us today. A lot of good memories, and I know there'll be some more down the road, and looking forward to chatting with you, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. This was fun.
And as everyone knows, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.